the demand that Hamas release the remaining hostages, who they've been holding on to for almost 2 years now, who they kidnapped and have been keeping in tunnels and elsewhere in Gaza. So the first thing is that if Hamas do agree to the deal and the remaining hostages are able to return home, that's, of course, a good thing. The mixed feelings come, among other things, because even that part of it comes with a familiar price, which is the demand that Israel release hundreds of convicted terrorists and others from Israeli prisons.
Is there about to be a lasting peace in the Middle East put together by the Trump administration along with the Israelis? Take a look at this clip over here with Douglas Murray, who shares on the news some of his optimism, but also some of his skepticism. So we'll watch this clip together and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
President Trump met with Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House, and they rolled out a 20-point plan, which is to end the war between Israel and Gaza. And they had negotiated this with a number of Arab and Muslim countries. Now we're waiting to see if Hamas will accept this deal. What was your reaction to this plan? And do you think it will actually lead to an end to the war?
Well, my reaction to the plan is one of, I suppose, mixed feelings. On the one hand, it includes in the earliest stages the demand that Hamas release the remaining hostages, who they've been holding on to for almost 2 years now, who they kidnapped and have been keeping in tunnels and elsewhere in Gaza. So the first thing is that if Hamas do agree to the deal and the remaining hostages are able to return home, that's, of course, a good thing. The mixed feelings come, among other things, because even that part of it comes with a familiar price, which is the demand that Israel release hundreds of convicted terrorists and others from Israeli prisons to return to Palestinian areas. And the reason why I say that's especially difficult to stomach is that, of course, this whole war and the atrocities of October the 7th came from just such an exchange some 14 years ago or so now, when in exchange for one kidnapped Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, Israel was persuaded to release more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, and they included Yahya Sinwar, the terrorist who was in an Israeli prison for murdering Palestinian citizens with his own hands, quite literally. He was released in the Shalit swap, and he went on, when he was back in Gaza, to reassume control of Hamas and to mastermind and orchestrate the October the 7th massacres. So many Israelis and many others look at this sort of a deal and say, how can this be happening again? How can there once again be the exchange of hundreds and hundreds of convicted terrorists in exchange for, in this case, some 49 alive and sadly dead bodies of totally innocent Israelis abducted from their homes on the morning of October the 7th. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there's a whole slew of other parts of this proposal, and some of them are I have to say, pretty positive. There is at least an idea of what to do with post-war Gaza that isn't just the same as the sort of status quo that European politicians and others are very fond of, which is stop the Israelis from destroying Hamas, withdraw, pour in international money, and then let's see the same thing happen all over again. So that's a positive. But as ever with these sort of peace plans, it's a very mixed bag.
So when you look at this situation, and I'm looking at the points of this peace plan. Number one, Gaza will be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. And that essentially is at the heart of everything that Israel has wanted for a very, very long time. There are measures in here that would allow members of Hamas to leave the area if they are seeking basically a new way of life. Also, Palestinians have the right to stay and be part of what is envisioned as a better Gaza. a more free Gaza and one that potentially would have an economy, which it hasn't had in a very long time. So, your thoughts on that part of this situation. Is there any hope in here for Palestinians who would like to have a different future?
Well, firstly, if I may say so, I mean, the issue of the economy of Gaza, Gaza did, of course, have an economy, not least through the billions and billions of dollars of aid that the United States, United Kingdom, EU countries and others poured into Gaza after the full Israeli withdrawal in 2005. The billions of dollars of our tax-paying money that went into the area. The problem is that, of course, the leadership who the Palestinians of Gaza voted in were Hamas, and they used all of our money to build their terror networks and indeed to make themselves all billionaires. It's something I mention in my book on democracies and death cults, that every one of the Hamas leaders who has been killed by Israel since the beginning of the October 7th war died a multi-billionaire. And that's pretty astonishing. And that was because of our, as it were, generosity. If it was possible for Gaza to be de-radicalized and to have an actually functioning economy instead of being a basket case that relied on international aid, then that would, of course, be a good thing. But one of the problems here, of course, that everybody knows is the issue of whether or not Gaza can be de-radicalized. Hamas had an entire generation, 18 years, the length of time from a child's birth to the end of their formal education, to indoctrinate a new generation in Gaza into the belief that massacring their Israeli neighbors is the highest purpose in life. And again, that happened under the watch of, for instance, the United Nations. It was United Nations agencies like UNRWA who were meant to be in charge of this not happening. And they not just failed, but actually encouraged and legitimized the teaching of terrorism to the young people of Gaza. If it's possible, and President Trump's plan includes this, it seems that if it's possible for there to be some kind of body that makes sure that, who knows, that Gazans are able to be taught useful skills and knowledge and to actually be educated into improving their lives, that would, of course, be a tremendous thing. But we really, many of us who have seen this in cycles will wait for more, let's say, detail to be fleshed out before we know whether or not that's even plausible.
Right, so at this point in time, there is supposed to be a board of peace that oversees the transition period from Gaza terror state to flourishing area of freedom. God willing, I say, because as Douglas Murray says, color me skeptical, but we've seen this before. The truth is, a new board would be a good thing. The UN has failed miserably every time it puts its hand on anything. It's like the opposite of the King Midas touch. Everything the UN touches turns to garbage. But the Israelis need to be careful, and the Americans need to be careful that the two main objectives of the war are fulfilled. Number one, that the hostages are released. And number two, that Hamas lays down their weapons, that they play no role in the future of Gaza, that they can't have any influence over there, because keeping them in power or keeping them having any say or any influence in the Gaza area is only going to perpetuate this culture of violence and terror and really ruin it for anyone else that would like to live a different life. And there's no reason that there can't be the potential for a different life in that area. We have to completely start over with the culture of Gaza and, God willing, the West Bank, so-called West Bank as well, that these regions cannot be seen as viable futures. We need to re-educate and have that generational flow of people being able to learn other things besides kill all Jews, kill all Israelis. And we'll see how it all plays out. We'll be here to report it with you as everything unfolds this week. It's supposed to be in the next few days. The talks are underway, and we're going to see what happens, God willing, by the end of the week, how this thing is all coming together. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.